Tuesday, June 27th. As a disclaimer, if you're looking for hidden messages or reactions or me talking about people, you're not going to get it. That's old and boring. This video is strictly about addiction in relation to personal consequences. I'm telling you that up front because if that's boring to you, you know. And the reason I'm talking about it is because any time that I see recovery made fun of or addiction made fun of, I have to look at my own personal story. I can't talk about everyone's story because I don't know it. There are some people, I know their story. But at the end of the day, my recovery is based around my own story. I'm a person who believes that addiction is a disease. So my question is, do you make fun of someone for having cancer? Do you call someone stupid or less than because they have diabetes? You know, it's one of those things. I started drinking and using when I was 12. First substance I ever became inebriated on was alcohol. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Marijuana right behind that, shortly thereafter. You know, alcohol was cool, but my parents drank. Now weed, that was something. You know, I had to sneak around, I had to have a bowl or a bong or papers, you know. It was a total different fascination. The first time I took pills, I think I was 14. First pill I ever took was a Xanax. It was a round, what we called basketballs. Fell in love. Vicodin around the same time. Didn't think there were much of them back then. But when I was 16, I sold Vicodin. In the little circle of friends I ran with. We all sold pills to each other. I sold weed. And I couldn't get a hold of any Xanaxes one day. And I would have taken Klonopin or Valium something, but I couldn't get a hold of any. And I was at school. And where I grew up, you could pretty much get any pill at school. And my buddy was like, man, you should take 5 of those Vicodin. I think you'll really like it. And I got so bored and frustrated that I went ahead and did it. I sat there and I broke 5 regular Vicodin in half and took them all at once. And about 30 minutes later, I achieved a buzz that changed my entire life. From that day to this day, I'm a different person. Now, anyone that knows anything about opiates knows this. Vicodin gets old after a while. Doesn't do the same thing. And Vicodin becomes Percocet. This is in 2000, 2001. So Oxycontin is like a brand new street drug. And Percocet became Oxycontin. And people around me were starting to die from Oxycontin. People I knew. But I thought they were doing it wrong or something. I don't know what I thought, but I didn't think it was going to kill me. Obviously it didn't. And hopefully I can continue my life on without that ever happening. But I got to the point where I had such a massive opiate habit that I would buy up my whole town. Me and a few buddies. We knew everyone that sold painkillers. I mean, I knew elderly people that sold their painkillers. Just one of those things. And it wasn't a big deal to us. It was just something we did. A buzz we liked. I hear these rappers talking about sipping on lean. I was very familiar with liquid codeine back then and promethazine. So, 18 years old, I'm at a party one night, and I couldn't get a hold of any painkillers that day. None. And I didn't feel right. And I knew what dope sick was. I was familiar with the term. But I didn't think that was what was going on with me, because I didn't think I was a junkie. I'd never done heroin. I thought dope sick was only for heroin addicts. I understood the relation of opiates to heroin, but I just didn't think I was dope sick. And actually one of my homeboys told me, he said, "You're dope sick." I told him no, and he was actually on his way about to go get what he called a variety pack, which was cocaine, crack, heroin. He would sell the crack, and he would snort the coke and the heroin. He did this every Friday for whatever reason. It was like his Friday night party. And he said, "Man, when I get back, you need to try a little bit of the boy," or dog food is what we called it really back then. And of course nah man, I'm good. And they weren't gone long. He was back pretty quick. Usually to go on that side of town, it took a while, but he got back real quick. And he said, "Man, I'm going upstairs to cut this up. You might want to come up here before it disappears." I said, "I'm good." 1 minute later, I was in that bedroom, standing over top of a mirror with the cocaine on one side and a light brown tan powder on the other side. And he cut out this little itty bitty bump, and he pointed at it and he pointed at me and handed me a rolled up $100 bill. I snorted it. It tasted like dog food smells, if that makes any sense. And I knew why people called it dog food right then and there. And I caught that drip, I caught that drain, and boom. That sickness, that weird icky feeling I'd had all day was gone. And a warmth started in my stomach that spread out throughout my entire body. There were 6 people in that room. All of them are dead, except for one other person. And I think he's still using, including my girlfriend from high school. They're all gone. I'm still here. As you can imagine, that was the first time I ever did heroin. I was 18 years old. My mom has a picture on her mantle at her house, and it's me and 12 buddies from high school standing there smiling. And probably 8 or 9 of us are all high on heroin in the picture. Senior year of high school. And 6 or 7 of them are dead. One of them is in prison. He will never come home. He's under old law. He will die in prison, most likely. He was a tornado in some people's lives. He did some things that I'm just not even going to talk about. I just say that drugs really got a hold of him. And he is suffering the consequences for that. I will not tell his story. I can only tell mine. My girlfriend from high school, 6 years ago she died. I was 2 years sober when she passed.
Oh boy.
Sarah knew her.
Loved her.
She was a cheerleader on my Pee Wee football team. I grew up with her. I'd known her my whole life. And she was in the process of trying to get sober and couldn't get sober. And they found her in a hotel room alone with needles next to her. She was a beautiful blonde girl, big smile, and she didn't get it. She didn't get to stay sober. I remember walking into her funeral, and I used to get high with her dad when we were kids. I mean, 16, 17. He would not even look at me. And I didn't even try to shake his hand. I mean, him and I both know that, drugs killed her. Her dad didn't want that to happen, but I also know that he allowed a lot of drugs to go on in that house and a lot of other activity that was not appropriate for kids. But when I got up to the casket, I was a counselor at that time. I was a new counselor. It was my first year as a counselor. And her mom knew that. And she just grabbed me and just started crying, and just, it's one of those things.
She was beautiful too.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. It doesn't make sense. What I'm trying to say is that for probably my first 5 or 6 years sober, I had a lot of what's called survivor's guilt. People that survive plane crashes, people that survive train crashes, have a hard time dealing with that survival. It's a traumatic event, and everyone around them dies, but they survive. But they don't know why. And in a lot of ways, I had that same feeling. I felt like, and in no comparison, I'm not comparing myself to people that survive plane crashes. I'm just saying I kind of felt like, why do I get to be here? I wasn't exactly a nice guy when I was using. I wasn't exactly a nice guy when I was locked up. I definitely didn't behave well. Why do I get to be here? And it took me a while to get over that stuff. But the truth is that, the consequences that we suffer, you talk about financial, social, spiritual, loss of relationships, loss of jobs, criminal consequences, legal consequences. I think addicts and alcoholics get clean and get sober due to consequences. I don't think any addict or alcoholic wakes up and just thinks, I think I'll get sober today. Everything's going really good. I think we get to a place where things are bad enough, maybe we want to change. A lot of people know, I've talked about it in the past. In my case, it was a legal consequence. It was a case of having nothing, having no one. I was to a place where I didn't have friends. I didn't have, my parents couldn't even look at me. And the only person left on this planet would even talk to me was a probation officer. I was at a point in life where I had lost things other than all that. I was young. Like I said, I started at 12. I was blessed to get sober at 23. But I'd never had a career. I'd never had a family. I'd never lost a business. Sure, I'd had cars, apartments, relationships. I'd lost good jobs, all that stuff. But I'd lost things like self-respect, trust, commitment, integrity. You know, when you lose those things, you've really lost something. You see, the ultimate consequence was death. And that's where addicts and alcoholics are trying to be at. That's where I was trying to go. Now I know a lot of that is upsetting. And I don't say it looking for pity or looking for some sort of please feel bad for me. Because that's not the case. Once again, I did those things. I made those choices. I quit blaming drugs a long time ago. If I always blamed drugs for those things, I would never get better. One of the things that people don't know, you hear talk about Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio is the opiate overdose capital of the United States. More people die here from overdoses than anywhere else. It's common here. It's not like a rarity. It's often. People me and my wife know die all the time. That is a big part of the reason I do not spend a lot of time on Facebook.
There was an article today in the paper. There's a town in Ohio right now considering having 3 Narcans, and that's it. Actually considering only using 3 Narcan shots, and if that doesn't work, bringing the person back, then that's it.
Yeah. Limits on how much Narcan can be used.
That's sad.
It's where we're at.
Who's to say?
I know. I have worked with people as a counselor who are in their 20s who have DNRs, do not resuscitate orders written, because they are so tired of overdosing that they just want to die. And I have to sit there with their families when they explain and go through the paperwork that they have a do not resuscitate. So when they OD, the paramedics are not allowed to help them. It's a disease. When I see people making fun of addicts, my thought is, do you make fun of people with cancer? Do you make fun of diabetics? Do you make fun of, is that what you do?
Now, some people will argue that, but it's I don't even want to get started on that.
That's a disease. I mean,
it's classified as a disease.
Oh, they've known for a long time. No, it's, the stigma in the United States specifically on addiction is still they're addicts, so they're bad people.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with them. They're this, they're that. And that's fine. What you don't see is the families behind them. I could not tell, I was the guy that I used alone a lot. I didn't use around people, mostly because I don't share. So I'll use some of yours, but if you're looking for mine, I gotta go see you. And a lot of times, I would wake up from an overdose or whatever, and I many a nights would think about, how to get out of here, how to end it. So I didn't want to do this anymore. for years. And the only reason I did not end my life was because I knew if I did that, my mother would think she did something wrong. She would have blamed herself. Only thing that saved me. I wouldn't even be in the same county as my mother, but I knew. And that's that little speck of love that was still in me. As cold and just distorted as my mind and heart had become from living in the streets, there was still something good in me. It saved my life. The consequences that come with addiction are unreal. It took a lot of people that I've known and loved and have loved me out of this world. To call me a junkie is like saying, Brandon, you have hair on your head.